I'm Jake Hickerson. I'm the Basin and Range National Monument archaeologist, and that's in Lincoln County, north of Las Vegas. We got a lot of wonderful stewards in the monument. I also work in Lincoln County, the Caliente field office. Harry Conwin is the archaeologist for the Caliente field office. So to give you an idea, the Lincoln County is larger than the state of Massachusetts, 3 million some acres, and one archaeologist. Basin Range National Monument is part of the Ely district, and the Caliente field office is also in the district. And the monument itself is larger than the state of Rhode Island, over 700,000 acres. So it's a huge area as far as cultural resource management. And half of my job is the Basin and Range National Monument. The other half is I'm the program manager for the Lincoln County Archaeological Initiative. So within Lincoln County, as far as our cultural resources go, we've got some pretty wonderful historic structures. This is the Crescent Mill. The closest town is Rachel, Nevada, and that's probably about 40 miles away. This is out in the middle of the nowhere. It's a chimney that was built in the 1880s for smelting the ore, and there was a big stamp mill in the area. Of course, we have some wonderful rock art within Lincoln County. This is a really interesting motif that is called Piranhaget Man, and Piranhaget Man is kind of within the Alamo area, Piranhaget Valley. It's a motif you see pretty much just in there, and just wonderful rock art all over the place throughout Lincoln County. And of course, a lot of different sites and artifacts. This is an atlatl shaft that we found in a cave. It had paint on it. And so our cultural resources are really important. What we're talking about is the graffiti reports that you would generate as a monitor, site steward, or the general public, as far as notifying us that there is graffiti, or we'll be out there by ourselves and see it. So if it's at a rock art site, then we take that, as Rachel said, very seriously. We've got the White River Narrows that we deal with. The Highway 318 goes right through it, so there's a real problem with graffiti in the White River Narrows. If it is an ARPA violation, then we start a damage assessment, and law enforcement's involved right away, and the other guy will speak to that more later. But those monitoring reports, if you are seeing actual graffiti at a rock art site, then you would probably want to notify the manager, the field office, wherever it is, right away, that if it is at a rock art site, then we do take that very seriously. If it is graffiti that is in a rock art area but not on rock art, then we have a little bit different procedure. So this is White River Narrows. If it's not on the rock art panel, then we coordinate with our volunteers and schedule a day or two that they can remove the graffiti using a power washer and a chemical remover. These are two individuals for our field office and monument that are really invaluable. And I'll show you some before and after pictures of what they've worked on before, but it's on a Word document, so I'll kind of show it to you later. That shows Dennis Robinson right there, and then John Minardi, that have quite a power washer system that is not on rock art, and they'll go in there and use a chemical and be very effective. And I'll show you a few pictures of that later on, like I said. with graffiti removal, if it is on a rock art panel, then Section 106 and the ARPA investigation need to be considered. I won't talk too much about ARPA investigations and what's going on there, but I can talk to you about the Section 106 process, which with the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106 is that federal land managers need to consider the effects of anything that the federal agency does on federal land as far as the adverse effect to historic properties. So Section 106 is a big part of cultural resource management for federal agencies. And that Section 106 process I won't go into in great detail, but you have to determine with rock art, is there an adverse effect to the rock art from you just removing the graffiti? So there's a lot of consultation that goes on when it is a rock art panel that you need to professionally remove the graffiti and not adversely affect the rock art. So in that process, it is something that the ARPA investigation would be going on. They determine that you can go ahead and remove the graffiti, and we would start that Section 106 process that the federal land management manager will talk with the tribes and say, hey, we have a rock art panel that has been affected by graffiti. Here's our plan for removing it, and consult with both the SHPO and the tribes. So when you look at the Section 106 process, then you've got to start asking yourself a lot of questions with graffiti, and I can go through a few of the examples. This is the Shoshone frog in White River Narrows, and you can see my cursor. You can see the Shoshone frog, it's called. Nobody really knows why it's called Shoshone frog, and the best explanation I've heard is that it is there's some Wyoming Shoshone, really beautiful rock art up there in Wyoming, and it uses this type of style for developing it. When we were consulting on this project, we actually talked with the Duckwater Shoshone Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, and I asked him, why is this thing called Shoshone frog? And he's like, I don't know. So somebody called it Shoshone frog, and I think it's just because it's similar to some rock art up in Wyoming. But you can see that there's an effect here to the actual rock art, and the effect was caused by removing the graffiti. And to give you a better example of that, here is an older picture after the removal, and I don't even see 2012 was when that was. So this was done prior to 2012, I would think. I wasn't here. So you can see that somebody would have put graffiti track, and then there's graffiti here all through, and this is actually the Shoshone frog right here, and then there's another rock art. There's a horn guy over here, but the decision was made by whoever did this that we're just going to power wash this graffiti that unfortunately was put onto this rock art panel. And you could probably argue that there was more of an adverse effect by removing it than what was originally probably done. So those decisions for land managers are very important. And what we did with the Lincoln County Archaeological Initiative, and we'll see some of the work with that video that Rayette will show, that is a great video that shows how that graffiti removal professionally is done, is that it's not just graffiti removal. They're looking more at camouflage and concealment. So as a part of that project, then they went into this area that had been damaged by graffiti and then damaged by the removal, and did camouflage and concealment and blended everything back in. So I just went out there a couple days ago, and this is what the panel looks like now. So here is Shoshone Frog, and you can see now a little sheep right there, and then it's all blended in. There's another motif over here. There's the horn guy. So you can see that even the trap, the sun's a little bit different than that original picture was taken, but those big TRAC would have been over here. You can't even tell that it's there. And then where the actual Shoshone Frog is right here, everything's kind of blended in a whole lot better. So unfortunately, that costs a lot of money, but with the Lincoln County Archaeological Initiative, we have made great strides in the White River Narrows, and then some panels up in the White Mount Irish area in camouflage and concealment. And through this process, then we did Section 106 and determined that the federal land management manager consulting with the tribes, and is that if there was graffiti on rock art, then we were going to camouflage and conceal it, take pictures of it, because that's always a question when you're removing, and it's a difficult question, is what is, you know, when you look at this rock art panel, and this was on in the amphitheater at White River Narrows, you got Carl Williams, September 18th, 1926. When you look at the National Historic Preservation Act, historic resources are over 50 years old. So this is a historic resource on a rock art panel. And then ARPA, for an ARPA violation, then the archaeological resource needs to be over 100 years old. But through consultation for our Basin Range National Monument, then we determined that if it was on if Carl Williams wasn't on a rock art panel, that we would have left it there, because it is a historic resource. But connected with rock art, then we're going to remove it. Here's a pretty infamous, the same White River Narrows amphitheater, Ricky 76, and there was Spook and other things like that, you know, that the determination was that we were going to document it and then remove it using camouflage and concealment, so that the original White River Narrows Archaeological District, which was designated for its Native American rock art, that would be removed. Here's another panel up at Mount Irish. You can see the LLHS, other graffiti that was done all over rock art panel. There's a whole bunch of rock art behind it, but you can see the spalling effect that's occurring here. And then there's some other graffiti over on the right that's a little bit difficult to see. But, you know, there's an inscription right there, 1949, that we would remove it. And here's kind of an after picture to get it back to what it was originally designed as. So with Section 106 and ARPA, then within the White River Narrows, we are working on an active ARPA case, which this tagger is pretty infamous tagger, Velour Kluwer. And he actually tagged White River Narrows in last year, would have been like March of last year time frame, where we noticed that he had gone through. But then he went through right before Alien Fest in September of last year. And Alien Fest is where they were going to storm Area 51. That they had a whole emergency response team set up there because we didn't know what was going to happen here in Lincoln County. So the federal agencies had a response team there, and this guy came through not necessarily as part of Alien Stock or Alien Fest and tagged here, and then was pulled over for a DUI, and they saw like 50 cans of paint, and the police investigators put 2 and 2 together, and so it's an ongoing case that I can't talk about because it did go to the grand jury or whatever in like March, and they are going for 4 different felonies against this guy and his partner, and it's now going through the court systems. So, but this wasn't on rock art. This is kind of a signature panel that they call, their signature rock, where people have been putting their initials in within White River Narrows. Some of them date back to the 30s. This panel here is close to rock art. It's about 100 feet, 150 feet away from a rock art panel, but there is no rock art that we could see that's on this panel. But we're actually saying that he affected the rock art district and blah, blah, blah. So there's a good chance that he's going to get convicted of some felonies and spend some time in prison because of it. So the before and after pictures, I'll show you what great work our volunteers do. So you see live, laugh, love.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a Word document that shows the before after of Dennis and John's work. This is the same panel after they removed it. Here's kind of the process where they'll put the chemical on. And there was some lower graffiti there too that was older, potentially. And here's Dennis hard at work. Dennis Robinson has been doing it as long as I've been here, which is just 3 years. But he is a great asset, him and John. But he's talking about retiring, and so we're looking for a volunteer to replace Dennis, which is going to be hard to replace him. He's probably been up here 3 or 4 times since I've been here in 3 years, and does some really hard work, and the logistics of it is pretty daunting. They have a power washer of ours that he'll use. This is kind of a big area, A heart T. Here they're working on that A and T panel. And now you can see how it's all gone. So yeah, White River Narrows, I went in there last week, or this week, Thursday, I think, and there's some new graffiti there. So they love putting graffiti there. So those guys do fantastic work for us. So that's really all I had.